So I went to go see the Marvels, and it honestly wasn't really that bad. Now, before I get into my review and what I think of the movie, I first want to acknowledge my personal experience with the movie and, like, the reactions to the movie. Even before the movie came out, long before the movie came out, I've never seen a movie get this much hate for no reason. There was no reason before the film came out. Again, I'm not talking about the people who saw the film and hated it. That's different. I'm talking about the people who, even before, long before the film came out, were saying that it's trash, it's garbage, stupid, whatever. It is just baffling to me. It doesn't make any sense. If you go into the comment section of it, like, it doesn't matter if it's on YouTube, Instagram, those are the two social media apps that I use the most, but it doesn't matter. Like, any comment section is just filled with negative takes on this movie. Again, from people who have not seen the movie. It's unbelievable. The Marvels has proved to me that comment sections nowadays are just filled with negativity, with brain dead people, with racist, sexist, or stupid people, or all of the above. I can't stand comment sections nowadays because it's just filled with the most hateful people. It is just so nauseating. Reading comment sections has become such a regular part of watching a video, or reading or seeing a post on Instagram, whatever. It's like a knee-jerk reaction for me. I'll just immediately, just afterwards, go into the comment section, and then I realize immediately that it was just a huge fucking mistake, because all I see are just the most hateful pieces of shit. Look, if you're someone who watched this movie and just hated it, there's nothing wrong with that. There is absolutely nothing wrong with you not liking this movie, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with you loving this movie. It's become such a thing now where I just don't even want to look at comments anymore. Like, even if there's a video or a post that's in the least bit controversial, going into the comments section is a fucking nightmare, because it's just non-stop negativity. It is so exhausting to constantly read the same things over and over again from the same hate-filled people. Like, it's crazy. There is some comments, I'm not saying it's everyone, there is some comments that are completely normal, and people are being like, oh, I'm excited for this movie, or whatever. There is positive comments, there is some nice comments to read, but to me, it's gotten to the point where it's just not worth it anymore. It is, the comment sections are filled with just the most toxic people you'll find on the internet. And in regards to me going to see this movie, I went to the first showing at my cinema. It's what I've usually been doing for the MCU movies lately. I did it with Quantumania, I did it with Guardians 3, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Thor, Black Panther, whatever. And it's usually pretty packed, but for the Marvels, I'm not kidding when I say this. I walked in there. First of all, when I first got there, the parking lot was almost empty. No one was there. I walked in, got my ticket. I went into the theater, and there was literally 2 other people in the theater when I sat down. And by the time the movie started, I'll be generous and say that there was probably at the most 20 people in that theater. I'm not kidding. This was the first showing. 20 people. It could have been less than that, but again, I'm being generous. I think this movie is going to be a box office bomb. It's probably going to be the lowest grossing MCU movie ever made. And it's crazy to me. Again, I'm not look, I'm not trying to, complain about everyone. If you aren't interested in seeing this movie because it just doesn't appeal to you, you're just not into it, perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine to not see a movie simply because you're not interested in it. I'm more so talking about the people that are hating on this movie for no reason when they haven't even seen it. Okay, so sorry to go off on a tangent. I just wanted to get that out of the way just because it's really been bothering me. But so the Marvels, I'm gonna talk about it now. I really don't think this movie's that bad. And again, I went into this movie with very low expectations. I really didn't think it was going to be that good. Again, I wasn't one of the people that was like hating it for no reason, but I wanted it. Going into it, I wanted to like it. I don't go into any movie wanting it to be bad. But I did go into it with low expectations because I really didn't like the first Captain Marvel movie. I thought it was really bad. I really wasn't a fan of Monica Rambeau in WandaVision. I thought she was the worst part about the show. She was just really stupid. Her character was so stupid in that show. And, Miss Marvel, the Miss Marvel show, I don't think was as bad as most people say. I recently rewatched it in preparation for, in going to see this movie. I rewatched Miss Marvel, and I really liked that show. The first 3 episodes I thought were great. However, I'm not as big a fan of the latter half of the show. I think episodes 4, 5, and 6 were really not that great compared to 1, 2, and 3. But again, I really like Kamala Khan. She's one of my new favorite characters in the MCU. Out of the newly introduced ones, she's probably up there as one of my favorites. So just because of all that, I set my expectations really low. I wasn't very excited for the movie, and you know what? I walked out thinking that movie was actually pretty good. So first off, I'm going to start with my positives. I really liked the opening scene with Kamala in her room, drawing and daydreaming about Captain Marvel. I really liked the opening with the whole, animating her drawings. It reminded me of the first 3 episodes of Miss Marvel, which again, were the best part of the show for me, so I really liked that this movie is kind of continuing the same tone as that show. That leads me into my next point as well, and that's the action scenes in this movie. They're really entertaining, and I really like the concept of, their powers being entangled, and every time they use their powers at the same time, they end up switching places. And that made for some really creative and cool action scenes. I especially like the one at the beginning in Kamala's house, where, Captain Marvel is all of a sudden popping up in Kamala's place, and then Kamala ends up in space wherever Captain Marvel is, and then Monica Rambeau ends up in Kamala's house. I really thought that was a really creative action scene, and the action in general is really good. Also, the chemistry between the 3 leads was great. They have a lot of chemistry. I really enjoyed seeing the 3 of them interact. So yeah, the 3 main leads are great, and the obvious standout is Iman Vellani. She is great as Miss Marvel / Kamala Khan, and even people who didn't like the movie or ended up hating it, they say that Iman Vellani is the best part of the movie, and I couldn't agree more. The Marvels made me like the character even more. I liked her in Miss Marvel, and I liked her in the Marvels, and she is the clear highlight in the movie. Also, something else that I really wanted to mention was how surprised I was at how much I liked Captain Marvel in this movie. Carol Danvers was a character that I couldn't stand before this movie. Like I said, I really did not like the first Captain Marvel movie, and I thought her character was so uninteresting in that movie, written terribly, but I don't think that was necessarily the fault of Brie Larson. I think that Brie Larson is a good actress. If you've seen her in other movies, which I haven't really actually seen her in a lot of other movies, so maybe I sound like a hypocrite here, but I've seen, her performance in some other movies, and she's really not a bad actress. I mean, I'm pretty sure she's won an Oscar, so, clearly she's not a bad actress, and it's not her fault that Captain Marvel is such an uninteresting character. But I really didn't like Captain Marvel's character in the first movie, and in Avengers Endgame. I especially didn't like her in Avengers Endgame because she was just really fucking arrogant and annoying in that movie. But the Marvels surprisingly made me kind of like Captain Marvel. They made her more interesting, and I also think Brie Larson is deserves credit for that as well, because she was actually allowed to show emotion in this movie. There are several scenes in the movie where she's on the verge of tears when talking to Monica or, Kamala, and, she feels guilty for what she did to the Kree. So I really think that Brie Larson deserves a lot more credit for this movie, and is one of the main reasons why Captain Marvel is more interesting and more likable in this movie. Again, something I really wasn't expecting. I knew I would probably like Kamala Khan and maybe even Monica, even though I didn't like her in WandaVision, but I really wasn't expecting to like Captain Marvel as much as I did in this movie. And I also really like how they showed in this movie, they showed not only the audience, but also Kamala in this movie, the character, that even though Captain Marvel is super powerful and can, defeat Thanos or whatever single-handedly and is this all-powerful kind of god. But with that being said, the movie shows that she's not perfect. Just because she has all these abilities and, is all-powerful doesn't mean that she's a perfect person. She makes mistakes in this movie, and you can see, and especially, again, with Brie Larson's performance, that, Captain Marvel feels guilty about some of the things she's done. And that I really liked that. I thought the character was handled much better, and I think Brie Larson has the best performance in the movie. Now I want to talk about some specific scenes that I really liked. First of all, the scene near the beginning where they're on the planet with all the Skrulls, and the main villain is destroying the planet or whatever, and they're trying to save as many Skrulls as they can, bringing them onto the ship. And Kamala is saying, we gotta save more of them, and you can tell that the entire planet, all the structures are coming down and falling on top of the Skrulls, killing a bunch of them. And Carol says to Kamala, we can't save everyone, we have to go now. And that scene was pretty dark, and I applaud them for putting that scene in the movie. Another scene I really liked in this movie is the scene with a bunch of flurkins, or cats, I guess. But first of all, before I get into it, I want to mention that yes, the movie, like a lot of MCU movies, has a lot of jokes, and I've heard some complaints about that. But honestly, it really didn't bother me this time around. The jokes, again, I don't think the jokes were gut-bustingly funny. They didn't really make me laugh all that much. But you know what? I will take the jokes in this movie any day over the fucking humor in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which were so fucking bad that to the point where it was really obnoxious. The jokes in Quantumania, they were so frequent and so unbelievably unfunny, to the point where I was actively annoyed, I really did, I fucking hated the jokes in Quantumania. But you know what? Even though, again, I don't think the jokes in the Marvels were that good, they weren't obnoxiously bad. But there was one scene involving a bunch of cats that I actually thought was pretty funny. And basically, it's where they have to transfer a bunch of the people aboard the ship, because shit's getting fucked up or whatever. They have to transfer them to safety, and there's a bunch of these little kittens because Goose had babies, I guess. And there's a bunch of these little kittens, and in order to transfer them in an easier way, they have all the kittens eat everyone and swallow them as a way to carry them, and it's set to this really dramatic music. And it actually did make me laugh. I thought it was really funny. So yeah, that's probably the funniest scene in the movie. Now, the last specific scene I want to talk about is something that leads into my negatives, because there is problems with the scene, but it's also a scene that I actually do like. And I think it's probably going to be the most polarizing scene in the movie. In fact, I've seen not several people, but I've seen a few people complain about the scene already and saying that it's really stupid. But I actually really liked the scene and thought it was really creative. So basically, they go to this planet, and these people are obsessed with Carol, and they all love her, but they don't speak in regular sentences. They sing everything they say. So they don't really understand normal words unless you sing what you're saying to them. And I thought it was really creative. And again, if you're one of those people, I think if you're one of those people, who thought the scene was really stupid, I completely understand it, because if you take the time to think about it for more than 2 seconds, it doesn't make any sense at all, because even if they, only speak in singing, they're still speaking English, so it doesn't make any sense that they're not able to understand people who don't sing their words to them, because they're still speaking English. So it doesn't really make sense there. But again, if you can look past it, it's a fucking superhero movie where people fly around in space. So I don't personally, I didn't really take it that seriously. So I think if you don't take it that seriously, the scene is really creative. Like, I think the whole idea, I really like the costumes in the scene too. However, I think one of the things I didn't like about the scene, that I agree with other people on, is the fact that Carol, Monica, and Kamala all get new costumes for really no reason. Like, I think Carol says to one of the people, we need some battle suits made for us. And it's like, why? Why don't you just use the suits you came to space with? It doesn't make any sense. And you can tell that it was probably Disney behind the scenes going, yes, make them all new costumes so that we can make a bunch of toys with new costumes. And it's just, it came across as so, obvious, and like, we know that Disney is behind this movie and they like money, so just put them all in new costumes. But again, I want to say that I've said this, I think I said this in my trailer thoughts video, but the new costumes are terrible. I think Monica's is okay, but Kamala, and especially Carol's new costume, is just terrible. They're both terrible. They look so cheap, and it looks like a friggin' low-budget TV show costume. They just look terrible, but, again, aside from that, I did really like the whole scene with the singing and the kind of like the musical part of it. I enjoyed it. Okay, so now I'm going to go into my actual negatives with this movie, and there's not a lot, but, there is like a huge negative about the movie that I'll get into in a bit. But first, I want to talk about kind of like the minor negatives I had. So first of all, when the movie first cuts to Carol, when we see her for the first time, it's when she's doing these she's putting on this little thing on her head that makes her look past at all her memories, and it's like the film's introduction to Carol's character. And to me, it just kind of came across as like, okay, the movie's kind of saying to us, we know that no one liked the first Captain Marvel movie, and no one wants to sit through that movie again. So, here's a quick recap of like, and it cuts to like a bunch of different scenes from the first movie as like a quick little recap. And to me, it just came across as like, okay, yeah, we need to show you this just in case you're someone who doesn't care for the first movie. And it's like, yeah, I part of me thought it was kind of funny, but at the same time, it's like, it really wasn't necessary. But again, I kind of understand why it's there. Something about the movie that I thought was kind of pointless was the characters of Nick Fury and Kamala's family members. Kamala's mom, dad, and brother from the Miss Marvel show are also in this movie, obviously. Their characters, along with Nick Fury, really have no purpose in this movie. Kamala's family is just there with Nick Fury on the ship, and all they do is just worry about Kamala. Like they're worried that she's not going to make it home okay. And again, while I understand that, it makes sense for their characters, but they just didn't add anything to the movie. And Nick Fury is just there to be there, I guess, because like, I think the only reason they put Nick Fury in this movie is because he's in the first Captain Marvel movie and he was a major character in that movie, so they're kind of like, oh, well, we gotta put him in the sequel just cause, but he doesn't do anything in the movie. All he does is just sit on a ship for the entire movie and, sometimes command others on what to do. That's it. I think if you remove Nick Fury and Kamala's family from the movie, not much would change. And finally, my last negative and my biggest negative is something that pretty much everyone is agreeing on. Even people who really liked the movie say that the villain Dar-Benn, I think her name is, there's no other way of saying it. She sucks. She is a horrible villain. One of the worst the MCU has ever had. First of all, there's very little scenes with her, so they breeze past her backstory very quickly, and all we know is that she wants Miss Marvel's bangle because she finds a second bangle at the beginning of the movie, and then she finds that Kamala also has a bangle, so she wants it, I guess to become powerful or whatever. And then she's also mad at Carol because of what Carol did to the Kree, and claims that she refers to Carol as the Annihilator. I guess it makes sense, but she's such a weak villain. You barely know anything about her. You know her motivation, but it's just kind of half-assed. Like it's such a weak villain. The villain in this movie is horrible. But other than that, there's not really much else I have to say about the Marvels. There is stuff to spoil about the movie, but I'm not going to go into spoilers because I don't have much to say regarding the spoilers. So yeah, in conclusion, I think the Marvels is really not that bad. In fact, I really enjoyed it. I think there's many aspects that deserves praise. And honestly, I think the positives outweigh the negatives. Again, the villain Dar-Benn, horrible. But if you can look past the villain, I think there's a lot to like. Some really creative scenes, good chemistry between the cast. They improved on Captain Marvel's character, which was the biggest surprise of the movie for me. And yeah, it's just a really enjoyable movie. I had a good time. Not one of the best MCU movies, but far from the worst, and I think it's honestly laughable for someone to say that Quantumania is better than the Marvels. That shit is so fucking laughable. Like, the Marvels is nowhere near as good as Guardians 3 was, but this is not the worst MCU movie this year, not by a long shot. I'm gonna give the Marvels a 7 out of 10. I'm actually really happy that I liked this movie as much as I did. I really wasn't expecting to like it very much. If you're someone who liked Miss Marvel and the Miss Marvel character, I think there's plenty for you to enjoy with this movie. But if you're someone who just hated Miss Marvel, you hated Captain Marvel, you hated all the characters that are in this movie, then you're probably not going to like this movie. I was honestly prepared to just shit on this movie, honestly, and I actually filmed a clip before I went to go see the movie where I just basically summed up my predictions and what I was gonna think of the movie. Here's a small piece of that clip in case you're curious. Hey everyone, so today I'm going to go see The Marvels, and as you can tell, I could not be more excited. Okay, that's it. That's all I'm going to show you of that clip, because I think the rest of it is kind of irrelevant and just not needed, because I ended up thinking the movie was pretty good. Sorry this video came out kind of late. I kind of reserve Fridays for movie related videos. I'm late uploading this, but that's because, last night, Thursday, I saw the movie, and by the time I got home and wrote down all my main points, it was like 11:30, and I was really tired, so I just didn't have time to make a review and upload it by Friday morning, so that's why you're getting it late today. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go watch the Loki finale.